Howdy, with this video I want to kind of talk about two big philosophical questions we're going to be working with the literature, kind of sneaking this into response number 2, or at least the lecture for it, to make sure we kind of get these in our head, because we're going to be working with these throughout the semester, and this is what the final exam is going to be based on. So the first philosophical question we're going to be working with is this question of essentialism versus anti-essentialism. Is there an essence to thing, or is there not? It's just something we assign, some kind of meaning we assign to various phenomena. In other words, is there truth out there that we can know and live by? And you see Plato, kind of a hardcore essentialist, using Socrates to discuss this image of the cave, and Socrates saying, hey, we can come out of the cave, we can go out into the light and see truth as it really is and live reality as it should be lived, and be fairly happy, right, doing that, or at least content. I don't know about happy. Some truths you may not want to know. But Plato's saying there's truth out there, we can know it, we can live by it, and we should do that. Obviously, if you believe in truth, you're probably going to start moving to questions about morality and start coming up with moral absolutes and trying to get people to live by those. So you might end up, if you believe in a source of truth like a God or something, you might end up with the 10 Commandments that come from this God and that we're supposed to live by. An anti-essentialist is going to be kind of on the opposite spectrum. They're going to start saying, well, no, what you call truth isn't true for me. And this concept of truth or reality is more based on our personal perceptions, on our biases and our upbringing, and things like that. So again, what's true morally for you may not be true for me. You may tell me that I should not steal, but if I have starving children, I'm going to steal food and feed my children, right? So your morality kind of depends on the situation and how I want to apply it in this particular situation. So the commandments start becoming kind of strong suggestions there, right? And you kind of see this battle within our culture, this question of what journalism is supposed to do. Donald Trump's done a fascinating job, I guess, of pointing out that sometimes what we call journalism is actually fairly biased reporting towards a particular worldview, right? And he's gotten a lot of mileage out of this. You can believe whatever you want about Donald Trump. But it's been a very powerful thing that he's kind of said, it's fake news, which is a problem in our culture, because where do we get our news from that may not kind of be based on a particular bias or perception. And we kind of fight about this within our culture. What's true, what's not true? How do we find out what's true? What kind of sources can we use, especially with the internet? You're getting everything off Facebook. It's probably half made up, right? Same thing, but when you get into college and you take a history course, are you learning facts about the past, or are you learning about certain biases from the people who created this historical narrative? Certain dates you can't change, but what those dates mean start becoming based on interpretation, right? So some fascinating questions there, and our writers are going to start playing with this idea quite a bit. Even if you believe in truth, you get into this fascinating question of where does it come from? Does it come from experience, just your personal experience as you go through life and you learn certain things? Does it come from a religious text? Which religious text are you talking about? Something like the Bible, where you're going to deal with different translations, different interpretations, and just who gets to decide what that truth is that's coming from this text? Very, very interesting question there. Does the truth just come from your experience? And how does that work? How do you know it's true if it's just you? Some fascinating questions there. When we get to relativism, you're going to see there's some problems with that. If everybody's just doing their own thing and believing their own stuff, how do we function as a culture? If I believe it's okay to kill you, that's a problem, right? Hopefully, if you believe murdering's wrong, which hopefully you do, please. The other big question, philosophical question we're going to get into, is this question of free will versus determinism. How much of our life is guided by choice and the decisions we make? And how much is our free will and our decisions limited by certain forces like genetics or biology? Very fascinating question. I'm not choosing to get old, but I am anyway. There's this biological determinism that's dictating that my body ages and it's starting to fall apart, right? I have to grunt when I get out of chairs. Parts of me hurt, but I don't even know why. Getting old kind of sucks, but it's just something we all got to go through and accept. It's not something we choose to do. Likewise, you may not have really chosen how much money you have. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But my children are limited in the decisions they can make based on how much money I make, right? When they say, you know, I want to go to Harvard, it's like, I haven't got no money for Harvard. And they may not be able to get into school anyway. So class, genetics, you know, a lot of who I am is my parents' fault. The reason I'm not 6'5", I'm 5'8" instead. It's not my choice, it's my genetics, right? But class and race and gender, if you're born female in our country, are certain expectations placed upon you, are certain choices are limited for you? It's kind of an interesting question. If you're raised in a certain environment or a certain culture, you're going to carry some of that stuff with you the rest of your life. Particularly, you know, childhood trauma, things like that. That doesn't go away. It's just something you have to learn to deal with. And how you deal with it might be kind of a choice, but you don't have a choice about whether you want to have to deal with that in one way or another. So how much, if all these forces are coming into play, and how much choice do we really have? It becomes a fascinating question. If we're limited in our choices, when we go back to that question of truth versus relativism, if you're limited by all these choices, does morality start depending on all these deterministic influences within our lives? And you're going to see our authors just playing with these ideas. Sometimes if you're reading something going like, I don't really like this, I'm not feeling comfortable with this, they're probably playing with some of these ideas and kind of saying, well, you seem to think this is true, but what about this? And then if you're sometimes like, I don't know. That's kind of normal. That's kind of what literature does. Any religious text kind of does the same thing. You see that with Jesus in the Bible challenging everybody, saying, you know, what you think is true isn't really true. And you know, to Christians, yeah, you have truth standing right in front of you, actually. But how does all that work? How do you understand what this person wants in the Bible? Same thing with the Gitas or the Quran or things like that. So it's a fascinating question. I hope you get into it a little bit. You're going to see this as these two questions going throughout the course, and pretty quickly with the fiction. So I hope that helps a little bit. And we'll see how you all react to all this kind of stuff. Again, we're not going to come up with one perfect answer. The final exam is not going to be explain the answer to truth versus relativism. It's a question we've been asking. You can see Plato dealing with this 2,400 years ago. People are going to be wrestling with these questions 2,400 years from now. But it's important for us as individuals to kind of come to terms with these. We may not always have the same answer all the time throughout our lives, but hopefully it helps a little bit to put it in some kind of context here. But we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.